Let's do some drywall. Hello everybody, just doing a short video on texture. This is a spray hopper. This is used for most textures like spray splatters, knockdowns, acoustic textures, orange peels, stuff like that. This type of hopper usually comes with three type of settings on it, three different tips. You got a large tip, a medium tip, and a small tip. The go-to tip is always the medium tip. Right here, we're going to be texturing a couple patch areas in this, and we're kind of going to go over the spray technique that I use for patchwork. I'm using a regular joint compound, mixed up thoroughly. This is mixed up like a heavy pancake batter, really thick, but you want to be able to pull your mixer through it. If all your mud's clumping to your mixer, then you need to add water and thin it down. You got to mix it thoroughly. If you don't mix these muds thoroughly, you're going to have to strain them. Once you get your mud mixed up good and ready to go, pour what you need in the hopper. I like to do a half a hopper. Some guys like to be tough guys and they load the hopper all the way full, but you just want to have what you need to do the job. And sometimes having too much mud in the hopper kind of gets overwhelming because you're carrying 20 pounds of mud and you're spraying. If your mud's clumpy, you're going to have to strain it. I use one of these spaghetti type strainers, a metal mesh strainer. That strains the mud, the boogers out. If you're doing an orange peel or splatter texture, you're always going to have to strain those muds. Knockdowns, you don't need to strain. The only time you'd strain a knockdown mud is if the mud's clumpy, not mixed thoroughly. This is fresh mud, so I don't need to strain it. Mixed up, I got a half a hopper ready to go. So let's go inside and spray these patches. I'm going to also need my 6-inch knife and a sponge. Always have these two on hand whenever you're doing any type of spray patch job. But we're going to go inside and do some spray knockdown. I already got the air compressor and hoses ready to go. So let's go ahead and go inside and get this area sprayed out.
Compressor ready. I had someone ask me what PSI do you spray at. I have this at full blast. As high PSI as you can spray out of the hopper. What you're going to do is adjust it here and here. I like to spray it on some of my plastic to kind of get my pattern going. You want to plug in the air compressor, plug it into the hopper, run it full blast to get some of the air out of the compressor. You don't want to spray it at full blast. You want to spray some of the air out of the tank so you're at mid-tank level and the motor kicks on, then you can spray it. Spray it on your plastic, kind of get your pattern adjustment here and your throttle adjustment. Once you're comfortable with it, then you go from the plastic to your patch area. Spray patterns, I like to go this way, this way, this way, or up and down, nice symmetrical spray patterns. And then when I'm done, I might turn it up higher pressure and fill in any little areas. A lot of little spray areas here. I'm going to spray this patch here. You can see it's just a knockdown type texture. You want to have everything plastic off because the spray does go everywhere. So plastic off your areas, your floors, your baseboards, anything you don't want texture to get on, you're going to have to plastic off because the stuff goes everywhere. We're spraying at full PSI. Extra detail and angles. Base areas around detail, you want to spray a little extra and then get it all sprayed out, and then you can turn around and knock it down. So let's go ahead and plug in the hopper and get to spraying.
Alright, so we're going to plug in the air compressor. What I like to do is when the air compressor is full of air, you don't want to start spraying it right away, so you always want to plug your hose in. And basically, you want to let some of the air out of your tank. You don't want to spray at full pressure that's built up in your tank. What I like to do is I like to plug it in and let some of the air drain out of the tank until the motor kicks on. That way you're not just doing a heavy burst of air. Once the motor kicks on, you're doing more continuous air pressure stream. And with the air compressor, I have it on full blast. It's over like 90 to 100 PSI. It's full blast. What I do is adjust on the hopper itself. I have a valve on the adjustment, so you can adjust it there, and your trigger, when you pull your throttle back, that's where you can kind of gauge how much material you want to come out. So really, There's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's more of like practicing. You're going to have to practice. What I always like to do is I like to see what texture pattern I'm doing on the walls, and I like to adjust it by spraying the plastic that I have up. That basically gives me, okay, this is how it's going to spray. This is a little too light. This is a little too heavy. Let me adjust it accordingly. And then once I get it sprayed looking nice on the plastic, then I move over and actually spray my work area. Once you start spraying, you want to do a nice symmetrical, nice spray pattern. Up and down, up and down, up and down, or you can go side to side, side to side, side to side. Nice, same symmetrical pattern spray speed. You don't want to just spray here, spray there sporadically. You want to keep a nice, consistent pattern. Even though this is a spray texture and the spray goes everywhere, you will notice a difference if you don't keep a nice symmetrical pattern. Sometimes if you want to break up the symmetrical, you can follow it through. If you go up and down, then follow it through a second pass and go side to side or diagonal. Some guys like to spray their patch and they'll turn up the pressure to a higher speed, higher pressure, and fill in the centers. That kind of breaks up the line patterns that you're doing with the hopper. When you're spraying, you're creating a line pattern. So that's why you want to cross it off. Cross spray it to break your pattern apart. This is a spray knockdown. So I'm spraying the whole patch and then I'm going past the patch. You don't want to just spray your patch. You want it to feather it out. There's a bunch of little patches on top of this big patch around the laundry room that I'm doing. So I'm going to spray these patches and then I'm going to fill it in and kind of lightly spray in between it so it's all one sprayed area. And I'm going to take my spray pattern past it. I'm also going to use up all the mud in my hopper. Always use the mud up in your hopper. You don't want to reuse it. Alright, so we're going to knock down the texture that we put on. I always use a straight 6-inch knife. It's easier to use a 6-inch knife for patchwork. Keep a damp, clean sponge with you. That way you can wipe down your 6-inch knife. You don't want any clumps of dry mud on your 6-inch knife because it'll change the pattern of your texture. What I like to do is start in the angles, going halfway across the ceiling. Notice how I'm laying the knife flat. I'm not pushing the knife, standing the knife up. I'm literally laying this knife flat and I'm barely holding on to it. I'm letting the knife just glide across it. By it gliding across like this, you're giving it the knockdown look. The knife's doing the knockdown. I'm not pushing down. I'm not putting no muscle, nothing involved with it. See how I'm holding the knife? I'm just barely holding on to it. I'm not gripping the knife. I'm just literally floating the knife across the spray splatter I did, and this will give it the knockdown look. You don't want to start knocking down in the middle of the patch. You don't want to do that because you get start marks. So you start in your angles or start on the edge of the texture and then move your way in. This way I'm just going halfway on the patch and then I'm coming back the other half. Just lightly knock it down. Don't push down hard or you're going to make flat spots. You don't want a heavy flat spot knockdown areas. So you kind of do the same glide across everything. It gives you a nice knockdown. A lot of guys think you have to set the mud up, let it dry before you knock it down. No, you want to knock it down right away. It gives you the best finish. If you let this mud set up and then you try to knock it down, it's going to drag on you. And you don't want mud dragging on you when you're trying to knock it down because it doesn't look good. Sometimes it's also easier to start on your edges where the new texture meets the old texture. Maybe start knocking down on that edge inward. But I like to do the angles. Any scuff areas like this one pulled a little scratch. I like to get the little booger out of there that pulled the scratch and kind of dimple it with my finger and then turn around and knock it down. You'll never know any imperfections like that. You're always going to get boogers in your texture. It's just nature. It's just how it goes. So just dig out any of those boogers and knock it down. You'll never know. Extra detail around base areas, in the angles, around any boxes, light boxes, water boxes, anything extra detail around the edges. And just double check everything. Once you get it all knocked down, then you can pull your plastic and then get some more light in here. You can see what you're doing. But double check everything. Once you do think you got it all completely knocked down, maybe look at it from a different angle. If it's dark, maybe put some lights on. You might see something you missed. If you missed any spots, go ahead and just knock it down. No worry though, if you did miss a spot here and there, knock it down. When you go to sand it the next day, you can sand away and create the knockdown look also. But this is just a medium-sized knockdown. That's why I use the medium tip on the spray hopper. The medium tip gives you the most uniform, most common type knockdown jobs. Knockdown sprays were invented in I'd say the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They even did it in the 90s and early 2000s, but most of the new homes don't have spray knockdowns or spray textures anymore. So this is an older retro type texture that we're matching. So we got to come in here and we got to match it. Get it match 100%. So that's why I like to use a 6-inch knife on these patches, because you can get a nice knockdown consistency pattern. Also the edge, I like to take the edge where the spray mist went with my sponge and wipe down that edge. And just basically double check everything and just knock it down. It's pretty simple. That's why I have a couple videos of this knockdown, because it's the most common type job. But once you do knockdown a few times, you kind of learn the pattern of it, how to do it. Maybe you're planning on doing a skip or a spray knockdown job on your project. Maybe you can test on a piece of plastic or cardboard, an old piece of sheetrock. That way you can dial in your hopper, dial in your air compressor, and dial in your knockdown skills. This is not something you just watch a YouTube video and you think you can do it. So you definitely want to practice, because once you spray it, knock it down, well, guess what? If it doesn't look good, you're going to have to sand away everything you did, all your mistakes, or you're going to have to skim away your mistakes. And if it looks really bad, then you're going to be hiring a guy like me to come in and charge you a lot of money to fix your mistakes. So if you're not confident, hire a professional. It is a skilled trade. Some of these videos, we make it look easy, like, oh, I could do that. But you're forgetting that we have the materials on hand. We do it every day, every day, every day, every day. So we kind of learn the patterns. We learn how to work with our tools, how to have the mud just right, everything. You know, the wind has to blow to the left and the sun has to set to the right. It's just practice makes perfect with these drywall textures, and just I've done so many of them. That's why we do these patch jobs like this. We spray the area, spray it heavy, blend it in. It looks really good. Once you get everything all sprayed and knocked down, then you can go ahead and peel your plastic. A lot of people always ask me, hey, do you think you can leave your plastic up overnight? Since I got to paint this anyways, can you just leave your plastic? I always tell everybody, no, you want to peel the plastic. There's a reason we peel the plastics, because the mud will flake off. The mud sometimes sticks to the wall. And then when you go to pull that tape, sometimes they'll rip the texture right out with it. So every job, when you're done texturing, just go ahead and pull your plastic. You're going to have to clean up the area and basically treat it as a done job. When you're going to have to paint, you're going to have to remask the area with clean, fresh masking. Don't leave your masking up overnight. It's easier to peel while the texture is wet. So peel your masking while the texture is wet. Get it out of there. If you let that mud dry, texture dry, when I pull that tape up, that masking tape, it's going to rip the wall, because it basically solidified all the texture to the wall. So that's why we always pull our masking, even if the client asks us to keep the plastic. But it's just easy. This is just an easy spray knockdown, and just kind of going over it, because everybody always asks me, how do you do it? How do you create that pattern? Just clean up your area, let it dry 24 hours or so. In the winter, maybe give it a little more time since it's cooler out. So let it dry. Next step after it dries, you lightly sand. Always sand spray knockdowns with 150 to 220 grit sandpaper. Then primer. Always use a primer like a PVA drywall sealer or a Kills primer. And then you can paint. Always sand, always primer before paint, and it'll give you a perfect job. And this was a good job on spray knockdown. Hey, I hope you liked it. Please like, subscribe, comment. Simple short video just to help you out, because I already know how to do drywall. Hey, thanks for watching.